Right, so now we're going to be using CSS modules, and this is kind of a new. I'm going to show you what we can do, and then I'm going to show you how to do it because it's kind of confusing. First, I'm going to delete all the things that we have inside news list item. We are not going to use Glamour, so just going to go back to the previous state of things. Good. So now what we can do after we do some setup, what we could do is to import maybe a variable. Just give it a name. I'm going to use classes. You can use the styles or whatever is that you want to use. And then from, and what we're going to do, we're going to import the CSS from the source folder, just like here. So I'm going to access // then CSS / and then of course it's going to be styles.css. So I'm pretty much including this style sheet instead of this, just like we did with the header, right here. But it's a little bit different. Right here we are importing the style directly, and right here we assign a name. So now what we can do after we enable modules, what we can do is just go to the div where we want to use the class, and we can use class name, and instead of passing some text, what we can do, we can pass the class that we have inside styles. The class for this could be something like, I don't know, .news item, something like that, news item. And for now, I'm just going to say background and then just red, something like that. So now what we can do, since we are importing right here, webpack and React, they're going to just compile everything, and you're going to have access to that class inside classes, and then news _ item. And it's going to go ahead, find the style right here, parse everything, and just do it, add styles here. I know it sounds kind of confusing, but it's going to be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to show you how to do it and you will get it. Now, here's the downside. We need to do a lot of tweaking. And whenever if we choose to use this method, the modules, including the module, we cannot use this one. This one is not going to work. So you're going to see in a minute why. So the first step is going to be enabling the CSS modules using this method. So we need to change the configuration of how our app is rendered. And I'm talking about what happens inside Create React App and Webpack. So yeah, we need to touch the configuration files. So by default, the configuration files inside our project are hidden from us. So we are not allowed to touch the files. This is by default with Create React App. But React gives you the control over this. We can run a command and have all the configuration files available. Good. Now here's the warning. Once you disable the feature of having the folders hidden, you cannot go back. So if you make a change on the configuration, you make a mistake, the application is going to break and you cannot go back to a previous state. You cannot do it. It's not going to let you. So if you make some changes, make sure that you're doing the right changes. And if not, you're going to have to just inspect what you changed and fix it. Good. So I would recommend to use version control, just like Git, to save a branch with the default state of your app. So if you make a mistake, you can always go back. Good. All right. So the first step to do this, to enabling this, is going to be in the package.json. I'm going to go right here. Right here you have the dependencies, and this is what we care right now, the scripts. Whenever we use npm start, it's creating the development server for us. So you can see it on the screen. Good. Then we have the build. Whenever we need to deploy our application to production, it's going to create a folder with all the required files, the bundle.js. Good. So then we have the test. We're going to see this later. And then we have eject. What is eject? Why? No, it looks like a dangerous name. So with eject, what we can do, we are going to say to Create React App to disable the hidden folders. So it's going to give us back access to all the configuration files. We're going to do it right now. Remember to save something in Git, to save your project in Git. I'm going to do clear. I'm going to say npm run eject, just like that. It's going to take a little while. And are you sure you want to eject? This action is permanent. So yeah, we know. I'm going to say yes. I know. Okay. So now the package.json is going to change. it's going to show you right here all the dependencies that the Create React app is using that we didn't have access, but now we do. And of course, we have a lot of more logic right here. And notice that we don't have the eject, so we cannot do eject again. Okay, that's good. So now let me show you right here. You have the public. You're going to have access to scripts. The source, the same source. But now right here we have a folder that's going to say config. So this is the folder where all the configuration happens. And right here we have a webpack and a webpack prod, the dev and the prod. So whenever we use npm start, it's going to use the configuration we have for webpack inside config.dev. But if we do the build, npm run build, it means that we're going to go to production. So it's going to use this one, this prod.js. It's going to use this configuration and not the dev. So if we want to make some changes right here, we need to make it on both files. Okay, that's good. So now we need to enable the modules right here in the webpack. So we're going to go to webpack. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to keep scrolling down. You're going to have a lot of configuration, really confusing. Whenever we hit the webpack section of this course, all this logic is going to start making sense. Don't worry. So I'm going to keep scrolling down until you see something that says CSS inside test and then CSS. So right here, we have the options. So we need to add some extra features right here. So what we need to do, we need to go right here and say modules. And modules is going to be equal to true. So now modules are available for our project. Good. We need to add an additional feature. Now, whenever these modules is working, it's going to create names over the classes. So we need to specify which names are we going to be using. So we're going to say local, just like that, ident, and then name, all in camel case. And right here, I'm going to do something weird. So what we're going to be saying is that we want to use the original name of that class. Then we want to add an underscore. We're going to use the local, then underscore, and we're going to be using a hash. Let me just trim this down. So what we're going to say is hash, and we need to pass which hash. And we're going to use base 64, and then colon, and then number 5. So this is pretty much, oh, made a mistake right here. Name, local, hash, yeah, looks good. So this is going to convert the CSS to, so it can use it in the project. Don't worry, I know this doesn't make sense. It's going to make sense in a minute. We can actually view it on the screen. So I'm going to copy all of this, and we're going to go to the webpack config, but not the dev, but the production. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find that CSS, JS, the images, and then CSS. So if you notice, we have some other options. And this is because whenever the webpack, it's creating the bundle and everything else, we have more options because it's going to create a minimized version of everything. It's just compressing everything. So it uses more options. We don't need it for development, so we can be a little bit faster because we don't really need it. So after import loaders, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to paste modules true and local ident name. And the same thing we have inside dev. So, same options. Okay, so this, it's ready. So we can use modules right now. So I'm going to close the dev, and I'm going to close prod. And right here, we are importing classes from CSS styles. So let me go right here. Of course, this is not working. I'm going to do npm start. We're going to start the development server. All right, so that it's done. And notice that some things are going to break. So the logo is breaking and we don't have any styling right here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to news list item, and we import the classes. We assign a name from the CSS. So now, again, classes and news item, and what we can do, we can pass a name. So I'm going to go styles. We have news item. That's good. And right here, class name, news items. I'm going to just put the same name because I was using a different name. And okay, if we go to the project, it's going to reload, and we have a background for this. And notice the notation right here. It's grabbing that class, putting it inside each element with styles underscore underscore. This is the local, then underscore underscore, and the hash. And if we go to the head, we have it right here. You know, it's just importing the CSS and it's putting the same names. It's grabbing that class, changing the names so it can match the one we have inside the element. So this is the main idea of using modules. You know, it's really nice. So again, if we notice that right here, the logo, it's breaking. So inside the header.js, we are importing this on a different way. So we need to import classes from, and then, you know, from here. We need to use the same methods inside our project. Now, right here, we are using a logo and we are using a class. And for the header, we are not using a class. That's why it's not breaking. It's giving us a background of blue because we are not using a class. But logo, it's breaking. So we need to do the same thing we did with the news list item. Instead of passing class of logo, we need to pass an object that is going to be classes, because we have it on top, classes, dot, and then logo. And if we reload the page, in theory, it should be working. So, you know, it's working. All right, you know, that's good. So I'm going to be adding Roboto. I'm going to add some styles to this because it's really, really ugly. I'm going to go to the index.html and I'm going to add a new font size, a new font style, you know, font. I'm going to be adding Roboto. You can skip this if you wish, doesn't matter. And then of course in the body, I'm going to add font style, and then it's going to be Roboto, of course. Let me make this better. And then Roboto. And of course, I'm going to be adding some styles to news item. We don't need a background. I'm going to add a padding of 20 pixels. What else? The same thing we did before. We're going to add a box sizing, just like that. Make it better, box sizing. And the box sizing, of course, is going to be border box. And we're going to be adding border bottom. Sometimes when you switch between JavaScript and CSS, you get confused with the colons and the comma because, you know, this is not an object. So we're going to use a border bottom, and it's a 1 pixel solid and gray. Makes sense. Good. So now if we reload the page, I made a mistake right here. Let me see. There we go. I was using like an object. I was adding the single quotes. So okay, so right here we get the style. So this is working beautifully. So again, you can choose whatever method you wish. You can import it right here. You can import it without the class, just like we did on the header, or you can use modules. This is up to you. There's a world of discussion of which one we should use. Some people support these modules, some other people support the link. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If this works for you and you're comfortable using this method, you know, you should use it. Just go ahead and use it. All right, so let's go to the next section. We're going to go back, we're going to exit the CSS world and go back to the components. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be filtering the news. Remember that right here we have an input, and what we want to do, I want to say, for example, I want to look for React. This is going to go to the parent component. It's going to check all the titles, and it's going to show only the documents right here, the news, with the keyword React. Good. So it's going to show this too, for example, and the other ones are going to be hidden. And of course, we're going to be using states and everything else. So let's go to the next section and start working on the filter.